Great, thank you. As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present. Can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Meg Browers.
Here.
Tom Dixon.
Here.
Rima Sherry.
Here.
Chantal Murphy.
Sorry, just took a big bite here.
I love it. And Penny Dye.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tucker Holland.
Here.
Great, thank you. Eric Barth.
Here.
Great, thank you, Eric. Eric, and I'm assuming we expect Vicky.
I have not spoken to her today. I can shoot her an email and see.
Okay, I think she's planning on it. So,
Okay.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. I'm not sure that we have any anticipated. I'll skip on. Introducing the remote meeting. Good afternoon. This is an open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening via video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. Please note the meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating via video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along and use the posted agenda unless we note otherwise. We'll turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down a line of members, inviting each to provide name and any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone and your computer when not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. And any items with public comment after the members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names, be acknowledged, and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call. Briefly, just while we're on meeting stuff, I do want to say thank you and my appreciation to any members that were attending the public meeting the other night while we were Zoomed bombed. I do appreciate the decorum of the group and just moving through it. If that does happen again, we may end a meeting more shortly, as that kind of behavior shouldn't be tolerated. So with that, I will turn to the agenda. And let's see, first I'll call the meeting to order. And the second is an approval of the agenda. Tucker, is there any reason to make any edits to the agenda that you're aware of as it's written?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of any.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tom. A second?
Second.
Second from Meg by roll call. Tom Dixon.
Aye.
Meg Browers.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
Great, thank you, Chantal. And Brian Sullivan's an aye. Approval of minutes. This is an action. It doesn't list which minutes. Is it just the last meeting?
Ellis is not able to join us today. So if without any listed there, I would just say I would defer on this item until the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, it seems a little vague. So we'll just carry this item over to a future meeting. That brings me to item 4, public comment. I'd like to open the floor to any members of the public or members of the trust as members of the public.
Mr. Chair, I have one comment.
Great, Tucker.
This is not the reason she's not here today, but I would like to wish Ellis a happy birthday today.
Awesome. That's great.
Happy birthday.
So seeing no other comments other than birthday wishes, I will close public comment and move to item 5, year-round deed restriction community meeting discussion. Again, I kind of covered the overall, and I'll come to Judy for the meat and potatoes of the meeting.
So I'm not sure whether to start with the Zoom bombing or anything else, but it was hard, frankly, to conduct that meeting and keep consistent notes because of what happened. I confess to all of you, I have not had time yet this week to pull all my notes together, just because of competing deadlines. That's kind of my plan for the weekend. But I would say, I think at this point, given the timing and the sort of urgency to get something moving forward here, a suggestion I would make, I don't know how this will fly with all of you, but I think we almost need to have like a little mini working group to begin to kind of put some meat on what this thing is going to be, so that something can come back to you to respond to that's tangible.
Right.
You know, Tucker, certainly, me, Vicky, maybe a representative of the trust, just or two. I don't know how you want to do this, but I think we really need to kind of hammer through, here are all the things that need to be resolved, and how do you want to do this so we can start to frame, or Vicky can start to frame, whatever the legislation is going to be that needs to be pulled together for town meeting, or a draft of the restriction, you know, whatever the sort of next step is. I think we need to get moving because it's mid-November at this point. And I think really we kind of are going to owe it to the community to sort of go back to people and say, based on all the lovely input we got, you know, thank you, everybody. This is sort of what we're planning to do. And hear this in the context of, we can't do everything from the start. There has to be some priorities set. Not everybody's needs are going to be met. This is kind of what we're prepared to roll out with at this point, and here's why.
Yep.
So people can at least have something tangible to respond to, in addition to you folks on the trust.
Right.
I just feel like we need like a working session of like 3 hours on Zoom so we can start to work this out. I don't know how else to describe it.
Judy, I think that's great. Two things. One, Shelley Lockwood, can you please mute? I hear you commenting in and out. Thank you. Judy, what is a timeline that you would hope for that group to get together, have the 3-hour meeting, just so we can see who's going to be available?
Well, I won't suggest that we do it on Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
But I think we need to be looking at like right after next week. I mean, I physically can't even do it next week. My Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are completely jammed. But the
Okay.
following week, although if you held a gun to my head, I'd find some time on Wednesday. But I mean, I just, Monday and Tuesday are shot.
Okay,
so
so-
I would have to say right after Thanksgiving, we need to get something locked in.
So the 29th, 30th, or 1st is the
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
And Tucker, can you make that schedule? I think you were the staff person recommended.
Oh, yes. I mean, I definitely can make the time.
Okay, great. And then, do we want to do 2 members of the trust and just make it a 4-person group?
That is fine. Just a reminder that when we have 2 or more, we will need to post this as a public meeting.
Because it's
Okay.
a committee.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think you guys just have to decide, is that what you want to do? Because if you don't want to do a posted public meeting, then designate one person. If you're comfortable having this discussion where people can observe but not participate, I don't think we need to take comment, but we certainly, you know, people could observe and like or not like what they're going to see. But I think that's really a policy decision for you guys.
Great. Thanks for that, Judy. Are there any members, I guess, what's the feeling of the board and who has availability on either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday that would want to volunteer? Rima?
Yeah, on Thursday isn't great, but the Wednesday or Friday works.
Okay. All right, great.
Friday's
Uh,
magnificent for me. Wednesday,
Friday,
the 28th actually does not work for me.
Friday, December 1st is the target date. Okay, great. So I think we have Rima. I'm willing to participate as well. I think the question becomes now at this point, do we want to do it as a public? Oh, Chantal just popped her hand up. Chantal, go ahead.
It was a volunteer hand.
Okay, great. So it seems like we have an opportunity for a fair amount of participation from members. So why don't we lead towards the Friday the 1st, and we'll list it as a subcommittee public hearing. Rima, Shanta, and myself will join Judy and Tucker. And then we can convey whatever we need to Vicky.
Okay. What time do you guys want to do this? I forget. I just want to make sure I get this locked in so nobody else takes this time. I happen to have weirdly that whole day open, which is scary. Like, I hope I didn't forget to put something in my calendar, but it just happens to be open. So I'm pretty much available whenever you need me to meet.
So the Nantucket Fund Grant Recipient Award Ceremony is 10 to 11:30 that I believe some of the members who have volunteered may be attending. So probably after 12 o'clock, I personally have another board meeting at 3 p.m. So I have a window between 12 and 3.
That's my window too.
Should we just do 12:30 like our normal time?
Sure.
Great. Chantal, that can work for you? Okay, cool.
Are you going to do this in person or on Zoom? I don't know how you guys are operating on a day-to-day basis there.
Well, I think since you're joining us, we need to do it on Zoom. The question
Well,
is, do
unless
we
you
all
want me
get
to
into the?
come, unless you want me to
Hang
come
on.
to Nantucket. I have the whole day open, so if it would be easier for you for me to be there in person, I'll make the trip.
I don't personally believe that that's necessary based on the experience working online.
And I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. I just am offering.
I think we can come back to if anybody feels differently, but I think that it's a seasoned group working online.
That's fine.
So, Mr. Chair, I just, there's someone trying to enter the meeting as Zoom user. And I noticed during the session the other day, there was a generic Zoom user when we had all the difficulties. So I'm reluctant to allow this person in, although I don't want to deny someone public access here.
Can you have them identify in some way before granting access? Penny, go first, and then
Are
Tom.
you sure it's not Billy? Because sometimes.
Yeah. It's often.
That's what
Billy.
yeah, that's all right. I just wanted to inform you, I'm going to let this person in just to see.
I was going to say somebody call Billy.
There was an iPad user on the other night too, who was part of the Zoom bombing.
Looks like Billy.
Zoom
Sorry,
user, is
Steve.
that Billy?
It is me, and I've been trying to get my
Okay.
name typed on here. I just can't do it. So,
Okay. All right, get your IT person to get your name on there, please.
I'll be
Okay.
right over, Bill.
So we'll assume Zoom on the 1st from 12:30 to 2:30. Is that what we're thinking?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you want to send a Zoom link or do you want me to?
I think we need to because we're posting it as a public meeting.
Got it. Right.
If you have an opportunity to establish an agenda, that would be great.
Sure, I can do that. That's totally fine.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you need that 48 hours ahead, I assume.
Please.
Okay. All right.
We may even need it the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Oh, no. We have the week after.
Yeah, you
okay,
do.
we're
Yeah.
good.
Okay, no problem. All right. Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to cover related to the details of the meeting, or was it consistent with some of the other things you heard, or very different, or?
It was fairly consistent. In some ways with the smaller group and the lack of distractions, it was a little easier to have some conversations. So there were probably a few things where people maybe dwelled on some topics a little more in the smaller group meetings, but overall, I can't say I heard anything significantly different in that meeting than I had heard. And it's a question of like emphasis, I guess.
Yep. Before I close this line, there are some members of the public who attended the meeting, so I'll give anybody there an opportunity to comment. All right, I got some
Brian?
thumbs up and
Sorry,
see.
Brian?
Oh, Shelley. Hi, Shelley.
Yeah, so I got pretty distracted during the meeting as well. I don't want to dwell on that, but it was pretty hard to kind of focus my thoughts. So I just wanted to add a little bit more to the deed restricted, conversation. One thing that came up was, and I think it was toward the end of the meeting, was should this be the income limited? Like could anyone rent, or should the people who can rent be under a certain income? I think Penny commented on. Go ahead.
I just want to correct.
Let me just hear, Shelley, let me just hear your questions and comments rather than
All
creating a
right,
dialogue.
so the goal of this particular program, right, is to keep, as you said so eloquently, Brian, year-round residents and families on the island, right? That's its goal. And it's kind of easy to get out of our lanes and bring in other priorities from other programs. But if the goal of this one is to keep year-round residents and families on the island, they should be able to, the income restriction shouldn't be applied to this. It should be whoever, then you're kind of penalizing year-round residents for being successful, right? And saying they can't partake in a program that would help them keep their families here. And I just think that was the wrong, would be not a fair application of the guidelines, I guess, best way to put it. And the other part of this is that people are doing the right thing by the community, trying to keep year-round families here. They're sacrificing a decent percentage of their income that they could, have their children inherit by putting the house in a deed restricted program, and then telling them that there's a further restriction on who they could rent to, I just think is onerous. They should then be able to rent to any year-round person they choose. So those were my little bit more organized thoughts on it without someone throwing me way off course with their interjections on the screen. Thank you.
Shelley, thank you very much. If you have an opportunity and so desire, if you wanted to send any of your thoughts, written comments, it would be very helpful for us to get them to Judy to compile with other comments.
Yeah,
Judy, can you put your email in the chat?
sure. Hold on.
Thank you. Happy to do so. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Shelley.
I don't think the
Penny?
chat's on. Is the chat open?
Shelley, you can just send it to me for now, and then I'll forward it to Judy and Tucker and Alice.
I gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat what I said at the meeting, which was when we were talking about income restrictions or qualifications, we were talking about it for the people that would be moving into these units, not the owners.
Right.
Thank you.
I understood that to be that same thing. Exactly. I just don't think an income restriction on the residents is fair.
I just want to be clear that I was not suggesting anything other than the people moving in. Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Yeah, we're in a place of all high-level thoughts, comments, and perspectives at this point. So there is no program yet. So we'll work all of these considerations into the development. Are there any other members of the public comments before I close the item? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
oh,
go ahead,
sorry.
Tucker.
I just was going to mention that I've been in correspondence with George Ruther, and George has offered to, review, provide any input that's helpful as we go through the development of the restriction here.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
See what his schedule looks like on December 1st between 12:30 and 2:30.
Well, I don't think he wants to sit through a 2-hour meeting, but he'll look at what we produce.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, seeing no more, I will close item 5, year-round deed restriction community meeting, and release Judy to the rest of her schedule.
All right. Thanks so much. Good to see everybody.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Judy.
Bye-bye.
Item 6, Affordable Housing Act, discussion. Tucker?
Yeah, just a brief update. We had a call this morning with the consultants we're working with on this, and it looks like the first hearing for the Affordable Homes Act will be in early January. So we'll keep you updated once we have more details, but that is the latest from one of the co-chairs of the committee where it starts. It will go through 10 or 11 committees. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for input, but that's where we're at right now. And just separately but related, did have the opportunity to testify on behalf of our own home rule petition earlier this week, and I feel like that went well.
Excellent. Any questions for Tucker? Seeing none, we'll close that. We'll come to item 7, the trust's ability to create a buy down program for income restricted units, I guess now is the question. Vicky, do you need me to elaborate on this more before you're ready to field kind of the overall, or to come to Tucker?
I can maybe start out here, Mr. Chair. So, you know, this is a topic we wanted to introduce. Honestly, another item on our agenda here, we'll get to in a moment, is taking up a lot of oxygen as far as town council's time. So I think today, you know, we're just planning to talk through a little bit of what we might want to pull together for a fulsome discussion at our next meeting. But in the interim of perhaps getting ultimately to simply a year-round restriction, as we just were talking about, with no income requirement associated with it, we're interested in investigating the potential of launching a deed restriction program that does have an income restriction that could be supported by funding that we presently have available. Perhaps we would look at it as a pilot program, but this is something that I think would be timely to really spend some energy on and see if we can't put something together. And there are a number of different questions. Vicky obviously will be, you know, looking at the legal questions, but perhaps between now and our next meeting, there can be some further investigation on items that will be important to understand relative to, as an example, EOHLC, or perhaps to lending institutions and so forth. So, Vicky, do you want to add anything at this juncture?
No, I think that the idea of having some kind of program that can be funded by the trust without having to legislate it, you know, is really what you're going to want to try to do. And I guess the question is going back and looking at how we can create this program without a home rule petition, if possible. So I apologize for not having done further research on the subject. I was busy handling this closing that we're going to talk about, but I think we'll want to look at how we came about the covenant program. I think is kind of like a sample of what we're capable of doing as going forward without having to go and do a home rule petition, and also working within the parameters of our trust. And I think that's and an affordable housing trust legislation, you know, legislation. So I think that's where I'm sort of thinking that is the way for us to be able to approach this subject. But I certainly welcome all of your input, and I think that it may be also helpful if we can discuss this perhaps and get input from EOHLC, who, you know, may or may not be involved, and see what their feelings are on a program like this and how this may affect affordable housing projects that we undertake. So I think that's about all I have to say on it right now.
Thank you, Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
Rima, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if just modifying our current covenant program to 240% might accomplish this. I mean, that probably is a home rule, but kind of a simple one. Would that work?
I think there are elements of what's contained in the covenant program that could apply to how we design this, but that's also, it's kind of a zoning relief program, so it's different. But I think that for sure there's some some elements of it that we would want to look at and draw from.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Cassidy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this has already been discussed before. I have no idea, but through you to Vicky. Vicky, could a deed restriction program administered by the trust happen? As an example, Caleb Worston wants to buy a home on Nantucket. He meets whatever qualifications are necessary to apply to the Affordable Housing Trust for a down payment, what would otherwise be a down payment assistance program, or maybe a little more significant or substantial than that, in exchange for deed restricting his purchase in perpetuity. And that, well, that's the question.
That is the program.
That is the program. So it's not from the Affordable Housing Trust to the seller or the developer. It's to the individual who then restricts it.
Correct. Yes. I mean,
Well, I think, Billy, there's opportunities for it on either side of the equation. Meaning the seller, the buyer, or the developer, who's ever prepared to put the restriction on and accept the onus of the adjustment in equity. If that makes sense.
I'll take your word for it.
Well, so if the seller or existing property owner who may not be ready to sell their property today could take the restriction on and continue to own the property, and it would affect their equity, or the buyer used the payment for the restriction as down payment assistance could be the option, or thirdly, a developer could restrict a certain number of units as a buy down.
Well, I understand the others. I was talking about the individual and keeping it out, keeping that as a separate part of the deal. I understand about buying deed restrictions and so on and so forth. I view this as something different, and maybe I'm overthinking it or underthinking it or what have you, but it would be conditional upon the purchaser to apply to the trust for assistance. And anyway, enough. I don't want to. I'm taking up too much time.
I'd like to get in your head and learn more of where it's going, because I want to make sure I understand what you're thinking. Tucker, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Billy is on the same wavelength here in terms of, I mean, in a way, you could look at it like our closing cost assistance program that's designed already to go to a property that's been restricted. This is sort of the mechanism to restrict what otherwise would be an unrestricted presently property, and to design it for an individual. As you point out, Mr. Chair, it could apply to different situations, but certainly one of them is what Mr. Cassidy is describing, where an individual has made an election that they would like to live in a certain property. They have the opportunity to buy the property, and we are providing that assistance which enables them to purchase the property in exchange for the deed restriction.
Thank you, Tucker. Okay, so I don't know that there's more on that. Okay, so we are going to carry this item to a future agenda. Vicky's going to spend a little more time with it over the next couple of weeks, and we'll come back and revisit the creation of an income restricted program. We'll close item 7 if there's no more discussion, and open item 8, ADU feasibility study proposal. So we have received 2 different proposals that have been circulated to the trust on the concept of kind of calculating the ADU opportunity that exists on Nantucket. What remaining, I guess that's enough of a way to say it. So I'd like to, I guess, open the floor for some discussion, questions, comments on the proposals or thoughts about the project. Okay. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the proposals? Do we feel prepared to have this discussion, or? Yes, Rima.
So, I mean, it looks really interesting and fabulous. It looks a lot more fleshed out than the last time we went into Data World with another local company. And a lot more thoughtful. But after our past experience, I feel a little bit gun shy. And I'd like to hear from staff and from their talks with the finance department on the feasibility of this as well.
Okay, Tucker, do you want to field that question? And I think Chantal has a comment.
Sure. Well, so, you know, in the approach to this topic, the procurement department had, you know, instructed that we needed to seek out several qualified parties to invite them to submit a proposal based on a certain scope. And so we reached out to, I believe it was 4 or 5 different qualified parties. We received proposals from 2. You can see there's a fairly significant differential in the proposed cost of each of the approaches to this. So it would be dependent on, number one, whether you saw value in conducting this study right now in either of the manners that were proposed. And if you did, depending on, like, we would be circling back to the finance department based on your selection to say, we would like to proceed with this. We want to make sure that that is okay to do so, according to finance/procurement.
Thank you, Tucker. Rima, does that get what you were looking for on finance?
That's good. Maybe Caleb could just briefly describe the 2 options, so we're kind of all up to speed.
Before I come to Caleb, just a minute. Chantal, you put your hand up for a beginning comment.
You can jump to Caleb. Thank you.
Okay. Tucker.
Just this might help before Caleb speaks, but just to maybe clarify for Rima, there are 2 proposals. Caleb was involved with one of the 2 proposals. There is a separate proposal from another party, so I'm not sure he's prepared to speak to the second proposal.
Okay, yeah, I kind of missed that over the busy weekend with the new baby, so sorry.
New babies, yes.
Yes.
Early. Congrats. Okay, Chantal, back to you. I'm coming to you, Caleb. Chantal.
Where's the other proposal? Because I only saw Caleb's. Can someone please send it to me?
Yes.
Sorry, that's what I was gonna ask, how many people submitted um, proposals for this, but thank you.
I'm just looking. It was sent on November 9th by Ellis. At 1:59 p.m.
I just forwarded it to you, Chantal.
Okay, now coming up to you, Meg, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that I think Caleb could probably present his, but I don't know that it's appropriate for him to present the other one. And my comment in having read the proposals, but I do think maybe needing more time is something that I feel like would be helpful, just to review both, maybe after these after Caleb's presentation. And I don't know if Matt Heffenhofer is jumping on, but I personally have seen Process First work in the food insecurity sector, and it's been really thorough. So I think, this is a really serious issue, and I just look forward to hearing from whoever can present and address this issue.
Great. Penny?
Yeah, just for the, through you, Mr. Chair, to Tucker, can you just elaborate a little bit more on the background? We didn't solicit, these are unsolicited proposals?
So the background is originally, I think everyone will recall, Caleb had come forward with an idea to do this work. And so when he came forward with that proposal is when we went to the procurement department to ensure that we were approaching this in the proper manner. And that's where the direction came that given the relative size or magnitude of the project, we wouldn't necessarily need to do an RFP, but we need to actively reach out to several qualified parties, give them a scope of work, and see what proposals came in response to that. So of the 4 or 5 folks that we reached out to, there were 2 proposals that were provided, Caleb's and then Process First.
Thank you, that's helpful, thank you.
Caleb, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to share my thoughts before I do, because we've had most of the board. This to me really feels like a planning and zoning scenario that we should be getting the advice of planning and zoning staff on any sort of proposal coming to us. While this is data we may be interested in, I believe that we should defer to them on a study related to the thing in their purview the most is my personal opinion. But Caleb, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks everybody. I guess I'll start by saying I just think the island really needs this work to be done. Los Angeles last year, 22% of their building permits were for ADUs. And in our context, the lots that these ADUs would end up being built on, they would disproportionately be, I suspect, for year-round use. So I think it's a real opportunity for us to add the type of housing that we need just in general, regardless of the restrictions that the ADU program would place on the units. And then sort of on top of that, we have the opportunity to place restrictions to define the use of these ADUs. And in terms of the proposals, I'm sure Matt would do a great job. I would just love to see us do this work and take advantage of the bylaws that are already in place for secondary and tertiary dwellings, and build a program around that that's promoting the program, that's providing staff support, that's maybe providing a subsidy in whatever form that might be, whether it's paying the interest on a bank loan to fund the construction or something else. And I happy to jump into sort of any questions that folks on the board might have. And I'll sort of end by saying there is a bit of nuance. So I guess I'll defer to Tucker and finance on how we would approach this if I'm awarded the bid, but I'm with Housing Nantucket now, so I would want to, and Ann and I have discussed this, transition that to a Housing Nantucket project pending approval from our board. So yeah, happy to sort of answer any questions from there.
Thank you, Caleb. Caleb, can you elaborate your position with Housing Nantucket? So you are no longer working as an independent consultant?
Yeah, so I am, but I'm the associate director for Housing Nantucket. And so if my private company is awarded the bid on this project, then I would seek to transition that to a Housing Nantucket deliverable. And so however, we would want to address that with procurement, then we should have that conversation.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Caleb? Go ahead, Tucker.
No question for Caleb, but I just wanted to mention Matt Hoffenrepper has joined here, and I don't know if you'd like him to speak a little bit to his proposal.
I saw him come in, and unfortunately he's a little late to the conversation. I'm going to give him all the time he wants, but if I can catch him up for a second. Matt, we were just discussing, we're on the ADU feasibility study proposal. Various members of the board have made comments and questions. It's apparent that everybody has not seen your proposal when the email was delivered here today. If you want to offer, I don't know, based on not everyone seeing the proposal, that we're going to take action today. But if you want to take a minute to present what you have sent over, please do.
Sure, and I'm just pulling up my notes, so give me just a moment here.
Sorry to put you on the spot at the last second.
Yeah, no worries. Like you get way in the weeds when you put these together, and then you hand them off and you wait for the call. So let me just get to the right thing pulled up here. Yeah, so I think what we did is, for this, we try to understand really where you guys wanted to go with this. What was the work? What's the outcome that the community achieves should the work succeed? And then we took the suggested steps that you guys broke out in the different activities and goals, and we kind of reformulated it into our own buckets, which is the way that both we will probably approach the work, but also helps us to size up the effort that we think it would take. And that's just sort of I think part of the process of learning what we think it will be before we're really in the details, but also just helps us to reorganize it in a way where we feel we can look back at what you've suggested and say, yeah, this is how we'll achieve all those things, and this is how we'll organize it. So we broke it into a few sections. Just kind of 2.1 was looking at the background work, just the communication, relationship management, project management, and all that. Then getting into the data tasks. So I think the place where we will, we most quickly will focus on in our work, or why you guys maybe thought of us, is the data work. And we thought really first and foremost, we'd pull up existing data sets, see what's available, look at the different details within the information to make sure we can answer the questions you want, and then figure out what either the suitability is of that information to answer those questions, or what other information we might need to go seek to pull together. We then combine and clean the data, and then perform the analysis to get to those answers. I think the really important part of this, and my favorite part of the job, is working with you all to figure out what are those questions, because sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes, like in the STR work, the real questions are a little bit more nuanced or hidden than the surface level or the more operational question. So that's the data section of the work, which is really getting at how many are out there, what does it look like, what's the math, how do we make this work, and what could it look like based on the capacity of the island for these units. Then we get into the research and the methodologies. And I think when we sized the proposal, my guess is it's slightly, I'm just going to throw it out there, slightly larger than you were guessing. And we did that for two reasons. We wanted to put the research, we wanted to raise the research to a bar that we thought covered the most learning and most thorough understanding of the problem that you would want to have, both from the builders, the developers, as well as from people who would be working towards living in these homes and people who might own the land or the property that would that would facilitate this. And so we created first, we wanted to start with individual interviews for homeowner interest and willingness to build ADUs. In other words, sounds good on paper, maybe the math sounds good at the title level. When you get into the reality of it, will people do this? So we said, we'll likely use qualitative and attitudinal experience research to assess the program. We'll pull in these different methodologies that are most effective at teasing out what people really believe, not just what they'll say because they want to solve housing. Then do research more with people in the weeds, people who've gone through this, people who are most lined up for this, and figure out, what are the things that we need to know about this to make it effective. And then we get into broad research, and that's more like the surveys, figuring out both quantitative and attitudinal research to figure out broader data sets, not 20 people in deep detail, but more like 100 people or 1,000 people, whatever, in more broad strokes, gathering information from forums so we can have a better understanding across the community. The next research section was looking at the permitting process, just really going through that, working it out to figure out both like what are the requirements, how many people do you have, and departments do you have to chase down to get that done, and then suggesting here's areas we think we can clean this up, here's where we could improve that and design it and share it with the community, so that here's the playbook, here's the fastest way to do it currently, and maybe here's places to improve. Next, getting into policy and legal questions, and I think that one doesn't need to be could go way into the weeds, but I think that can be simple. It's what's allowed, what's not, where's there variance that maybe the town wants to weigh in and clean some stuff up, or make room where it might not exist, and share with you guys and work with you to figure out the key opportunities to improve those policies in line with the permitting process. And then last research section was looking at the opportunity and partnership questions. So working with people who would be on the building end, on the finance end, to figure out what is the math, does it work well? I know the conversation that pops up most in my mind is, or in my day to day, is talking with someone about building a small home in your backyard when the cost of building is $1,000 a square foot. So some of these things, like the math isn't, I don't want to say normal, but the math doesn't always work. And so how do we look at the math and figure out the way between financing that's available, different rates, different interests, different programs that are out there? How do we make this work? And then what does the ongoing costs look like? Because people need to be able to back this up long term. We can't get people to commit to this thing because it sounds good and they realize that, well, heck, I can't really keep up with the cost of this. Not suggesting that is, but just making sure that we work through that long-term process here. And then getting into, the experts and organizations that might provide support, funding, and do the work to make sure that they're all on the same page, that we don't design a policy that works for everyone, but no one's going to show up to do the final step, which would lead us to having put a bunch of time and energy and money towards a thing that doesn't get where we want it to go. Most of these I'm going to imagine are things that are solvable, but the size of the problem we're working on, housing in general, and if ADUs are really successful long-term as a tool to increase the housing stock on Nantucket, we're going to spend a lot of money building them, renting them, etc. I think it's worth really understanding what this is going to look like before we spend, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars as a community implementing, hundreds of units. And that, I think 100 was the number I said. If over the next decade we built 100 ADUs, maybe that's not as high as you guys want to get, but that'll be a win. That'll be 100 units, that'd be 100 families, and that would be worthwhile. And maybe the number is way higher you have in mind. Maybe it's 500, but it would be certainly a starting point. And I based the size of this contract off making sure we did a thorough job to help something that was designed to be at that level. And then 2.4 on the proposal was community feedback. Just getting general sense from the community, because some of the stuff has to get either funding or votes passed or needs to be supported. And so I was looking just more broadly across the community to support, or to understand what people feel, what sentiments are out there, as well as just to figure out if it would address that goal and how can we get people to back it, and potentially working on a future phase like a civic initiative project, something where we really work with everyone to help educate, move it forward, build excitement, answer questions, and move this thing forward across the community in a way that can implement all these ADUs that we might want to have. Yeah, that's sorry, a little bit unprepared, but that's just walking through the deliverables, the proposed work section. Before I try to wrap that up, do you guys have any questions about that I might be able to answer? Yeah,
I'm gonna pause you for a second because I know Penny has a question, and then I'm gonna ask you to come to conclusion because some members haven't even read it, and we'll come back and read through the whole thing. So I don't think we're gonna take action today. But Penny, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I do have my hand up. I just want you to know. Although
I know,
it's
I saw.
pale on the background. Anyway, through you to Matt. Are you planning as part of this to do an accurate and thorough inventory of existing ADUs?
Yeah, I think when we get into what is the data, part of defining the characteristics that would permit future ADUs, we'd want to be able to cover and assess the current stock to make sure that we both understand what's there, what's working, but also make sure that the ways we measure are consistent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, any other questions while we have a pause with Matt? And then in summary, Matt, what do you have?
No, there wasn't like a big conclusion there, but yeah, I think then the last section was just the deliverables. When we start work like this, I think we take our best guess from a static document as to what it looks like and what the deliverable is that meets your goals. And when we get into the work, of course, still keep those goals, still hit the contract requirements, but really work with you all to figure out like, what do you need and what makes the way we deliver this product effective for you all? Because the project ends for us, but it doesn't end for you guys. That's sort of when the work begins for you. And as we get into it, of course, really important for us to work with you guys to help give you the stuff you need in a way that's most effective. And, certainly part of our approach is that we evolve and listen and bring that forward in a way that's most helpful long-term. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments or thoughts on? Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and add that I spoke to Leslie at Planning this summer about this project, and she volunteered her staff time to do the data analysis on the project. So the way that I would tackle this is just lay out all the stakeholders. So the GC community, the homeowners, the AHT and potential other sources of funding, and craft a proposal that's executable, that the GCs are happy to build these units. Maybe we do 3, 4, 5 at a time. So it's hitting their $3 to $4 million mark that they're, the budgets that they're working with now. What level of subsidy makes sense? What banks are willing to lend on this product? I know Cape Cod 5 has an ADU lending program. And then, how much subsidy can we put into it, and what are homeowners going to look for in terms of restrictions? How many units can we get with XYZ restriction packages? So, would love to see, this executed for the island.
Thank you, Caleb. Tucker, I'd love to get both of these proposals in front of planning and get a better understanding of their perspective and staff and what existing information and data that they have and can supply. I'm appreciative of Caleb of bringing the concept to the table, and it seems as if you have a lot of programmatic thoughts and things that I'm hearing you say things that I don't know that I read in the proposal on a concept and a development and building, and I don't know if I'm thinking about it as comprehensively as you are at the moment. And I think I need to get an understanding from, at first it was how many ADUs can we build? And it was a data set study to do that. Now I'm hearing a concept of going out and building 3 units at a time and financing and funding them and hiring general contractors to do it. So it seems as if the conversation is evolving. I'd like to get an understanding of planning on what they have, what data they're prepared to share with us so we can get some more informed questions going here. I'll come back to you, Caleb.
Yeah, so just wanted to clarify that my proposal is still to outline a program. It's not to get into any kind of pilot phase and start building ADUs. It's to create the proposal to say, we think that if we get 4 ADUs projects lined up at a time with this subsidy package, with this bank, with these homeowners, then it's feasible. And with the data from planning, working with them as a partner on the project, we think we can have 250 ADUs in the next 5 years. So it still very much is a feasibility study, and the product would be a program proposal to then run a pilot.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any more questions before I carry this over to a future meeting to make sure everybody reads the proposals before we take any actions? Meg, I think your hand went up for a second. No, you're good. Tucker?
I guess just one question for Caleb, like how does it change anything, if it does at all, your original proposal, which I think you had discussed when you originally came to the trust, being geared toward a for-profit development opportunity versus now you mentioned perhaps this is transitioning to Housing Nantucket if you were to be awarded this opportunity. I'm just trying to understand where your thinking is on that and how it affects things, if at all.
Yeah, so 2 things. In terms of the proposal itself, I think it can be for-profit or nonprofit developers building these ADUs. We can be agnostic there. Whoever wants to build them, whoever wants to add supply, that's great. In terms of how the contract would be structured, Anne and I talked about this, and so this path is likely, though I'd want to confirm with her and the board. I would be running the program with Anne at Housing Nantucket. So in terms of the deliverable, nothing has changed. It would just be a Housing Nantucket contract, and I would be the project manager on this project, and it would come from Housing Nantucket.
Good, Tucker.
Yep.
Penny?
Thank you. Thank you, Caleb.
Let me come to Meg first. Meg, put her hand up and then Penny.
Thank you. I'm just noticing that there's a pretty substantial price differential between the 2 proposals, and I wonder if either Matt or Caleb could address what the differential is due to. What either is it just a staffing cost, or is there substantially more in one proposal than the other? Or I would like to know if maybe you could address that gap in cost.
I don't know that they've seen each other's proposal, but we can put the question out.
Yeah, we haven't seen each other's proposals, but Matt, if you want to take that first.
So I have to know.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be answered right this second. It was just a thought, but
So I don't know the number on Caleb's, but what I'll say is we looked at this and we came up with 3 numbers. We crossed one thing off, which I think I called this kind of like civic engagement town hall. We thought that would be leaping ahead to the assumption that you're moving forward. Now you're into the execution phase. We took that out. And then there's 2 parts. There's like the initial research to check, make sure we understand the cost models, the maintenance, the paperwork processes and all that. And then the kind of legal questions. And then the second body of research is really more understanding sentiment and feasibility and people's attitude towards implementing this. And most of our costs in this are in research. And what we looked at it as, we said, we'd want to do this work in a way that we felt the research was adequately thorough and certain for a program that we're going to kick off moving forward, and we want to commit to long term. It's a number that in my either the cover letter or the email, and I don't actually know if this matters, but we said basically like if the number is high and it feels off due to the depth of the research we want to go to, we can turn down the depth of research. Now, I submitted one proposal, not two, but most of our, I'd say probably half off the top of my head of our cost in this was really going to the research and really trying to be thorough with our interviews and our research in the community. So that's where I think probably our costs are, and where my costs are higher than a different proposal I may have written, but I don't know which side of this of the number Caleb is on.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
I'll come to Penny and then I'll give Caleb an opportunity. Go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, I just have a question and then a comment. I want to go back, Tucker, to your previous question, which I'm not sure it was clear, because I thought you were asking, and tell me if I have this right, I thought you were asking if Caleb is a full-time employee of Housing Nantucket, is the proposal then coming through Housing Nantucket? Is that what your question was?
Well, sort of. I mean, Caleb, I think, made it clear earlier that he is, if he were to be awarded the project, he's indicated that it would be coming from Housing Nantucket pending the agreement of the board of Housing Nantucket. So he's kind of shifting where it's coming from. And my question was, does that change anything fundamentally in all of this?
Okay, and then just a follow-up comment, which is, I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves on some of this to be talking about who's actually going to implement. We don't even know if we have something to implement. And of course, we have to work within the procurement laws. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Caleb, I'll give you the opportunity to kind of come back to Meg's question, and then I'm going to close things up and move us to the next meeting. We got a lot to work through.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, the way that I priced it out was I estimated the hours and then multiplied it by my hourly rate. So in my proposal, it breaks down the time that I think each piece of the project is going to take. So yeah, pretty much that simple. Happy to go more in depth.
A quick follow-up question for you. Is it a fixed price contract, or is, to your point, is it hourly rate? Then
it is,
that could adjust based on time.
It is fixed. The way
Okay,
that I
great.
calculated, yeah, it was based on that formula, but it's fixed.
Got it. Thank you. So with that, I think we'll carry this to the next meeting at the very least, to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get through all the read through the proposals in detail. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm going to leave this item open for the
Mr.
next
Chair,
meeting. Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
I'm sorry, just to circle back to your desire to get planning input on this. How do you see that coming? Do we want this to be on an agenda for their board, or more informal than that?
I think I would like it to go to staff. Caleb mentioned that he interacted with Leslie about it. I think it would be prudent to send this to Leslie and Megan and have their opinion and have them weigh in prior to going to their board. If they feel the need that it should become a board discussion, then become an agenda. But this really is in more of their purview than ours at the moment. So I'd like to understand their reaction. Prior to, I'd like them to inform our board before we get a little further down the road.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so leaving that open, moving on. Item number 9, approval execution of the quick claim deed from the Town of Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust to the Nantucket Cottage Hospital. So there's numbers of pieces of paperwork. Vicky, I will come to you to share a brief description on each one. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to review. A long time coming to this moment, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it has been a long time coming to get to this project and to this day. The parts of this, so there are a number of documents here. I'll just run through some of them briefly for you. There's an amendment, first amendment to the memorandum of understanding, which was in place of a purchase and sale agreement. We had an MOU, which would outline the terms of the transaction where the hospital is going to convey a portion of the property that they own at 16 Vesper Lane, and the trust is going to convey the property that they acquired from the University of Massachusetts at 18 Vesper Lane. So the First Amendment really is nothing more than we had a long period of due diligence that had been extended. The agreement had expired, and so the parties had agreed all along to be able to extend this MOU so that we could get to finally be able to actually do the conveyances. So it's really just an extension of what was a due diligence date and then a closing date. And so the closing date as of this agreement will be November 30th. So although we're signing documents, there are still documents that need to be finalized. They are not all in final form yet. In fact, there's not even the settlement statement here yet. So the closing would actually take place in the recording on November 30th. So there's the amendment to the MOU. That's the first thing. Then there are two deeds that I have forwarded to you. One is the deed from the trust to the hospital for 18 Vesper Lane, where you're selling the property for $2,799,872.64, which was calculated based upon square footage of the different properties. That's how we sort of arrived at the prices. So anyway, that's the first document. And then the second document, the deed is from the hospital to the trust for lots 1A, 1B, and 1C. I'm sorry, 1B, 1C, and 1D, which are portions of 16 Vesper Lane, which the hospital has owned. They are retaining lot 1A for their purposes. And then they're selling that for $1,605,464.64. And these properties are being conveyed together, subject to and together with an access and utility easement, which I have provided to you, which is a 15-foot access and utility easement that goes only over lot 1A, which is owned by the hospital still. So we will have access to be able to get to the properties that the trust is acquiring. Plus, you will have the ability to use that access for utilities that will be needed in order to be able to develop the property once the plans have been finalized. So that gives you that. And it also gets you up to what is the existing easement that takes the lot owners from both the trust and from the hospital to be able to get up to Vesper Lane for access purposes. So the trust will maintain the access to be able to get up over Vesper Lane. And I want to point out that there was a variance that had been granted on the hospital's property to allow for the subdivision of these lots and to be able to develop the property without actual frontage on Vesper Lane. And so that variance was granted. And that's one of the key delays to all of this, was getting the plans done and then having the hearings before the ZBA in order to be able to get the variance awarded. So there are plans that I have provided for you, which is one is an A&R plan that has not yet been recorded. It will be recorded with these documents, showing the subdivision of 16 Vesper Lane, creating the 4 lots, as well as, although there's an outline for a driveway easement running all the way across the lots that you're acquiring, we're only getting an easement over lot 1A because obviously we don't own that property. And then there's an easement plan which actually shows that in detail, in greater detail. I've also provided certificates which are what they call buy down or bring down certificates, which basically just state that the representations and the warranties that were made in the MOU with respect to the status of the organization, the authority that the respective organizations have to be able to acquire the property, grant the easements, execute the documents, the status of the buildings and the property itself. So when the MOU was executed, those representations were made. This just brings forward those representations and warranties to the date of closing. So there are no changes that have occurred since then. There's also a disclosure statement that will be signed and filed with the state, basically stating that the hospital is working with the trust, which are public entities, and therefore we need to file this disclosure statement as an affordable housing trust. There's a certificate of non-foreign status, which basically says that the trust is not a foreign entity and thereby isn't subject to the statutory requirements that would be required for withholding taxes if you were a foreign entity. I should point out that the hospital also is required to sign these same documents. There's an owner's affidavit, which is for title insurance purposes. And this basically states that there are no mechanics liens on the property, that you haven't had any work done that could cause a lien to be on the property. You haven't filed bankruptcy proceedings against the property. And there are no tenants or lessees that are occupying the property. And again, the hospital signs the same affidavit for their property that they're conveying to you. And lastly, there are land bank forms also that need to be executed. There is a trustee certificate that's not been drafted yet and will be provided as well, which basically is just going to say that the trust has the authority to execute these documents, that you have voted to approve them and execute the documents and complete the conveyance. So, excuse me. And that will be sent probably either this afternoon or Monday. And there is no settlement statement as of yet. The hospital's title insurance company wanted to prepare the settlement statement, and they have not finalized it or even forwarded it to us. So we have not had the opportunity to review that yet, but we will, as will all final documents. So before I'll ask you if you have any questions or comments. I'm happy to address them.
Thank you, Vicky. Tucker?
Yeah, as you can see, Vicky's had nothing going on. So just a thank you very much for all of that, Vicky. That was a great rundown. A couple comments, maybe one question. I mean, the biggest delay in this whole thing was the hospital having to deal with the Coast Guard. I mean, that took quite a while to get agreement on ongoing easements to the benefit of what they would like to do and what we would like to do ultimately. So then two things, Vicky. So, barring any I'll say minor settlement statement adjustments, the trust should be receiving a check for roughly 1.194 million. Is that no?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
Hang on, bear with me. I'll get the final amount. The trust will be receiving a check or wired funds in the amount of $917,597.80.
Okay.
Which is the difference between the two purchase prices.
In the two, okay, because I just, anyway, maybe my math was off there a little bit, but looking at the two documents, that's the number that I had arrived at.
Are there fees deducted from that number, Vicky? Because the difference, I did the math too, Tucker, and
okay,
the difference I came up with was 1,194,000. and some change.
Yep.
It's not substantially different. It sounds like it could be fees, but my question related to those funds, whatever the amount be, are they restricted in any way as far as what bucket they fall into for the trust's ability to use them in the future?
So, they have to, I believe, they have to go, they're trust funds. So they have to go into the trust fund account.
Yeah, we'll have to really have Brian Turbot make a determination. So the funding for the original acquisition of the UMass parcel was 25% CPC funding and 75% Neighborhood First funding. I don't know if we need to treat what comes out of this in a proportional manner, but that Brian will have to guide us on that.
Great. Thank you for following that up, Tucker.
Yep. And the other just quick question for Vicky was, Vicky, you mentioned that the plan is going to get recorded at the time of the closing, and that there's no like appeal or anything period related to that. Yeah.
No.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, it was an A&R plan.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the members of the board on the paperwork, on the deal, on any of this? Great. Vicky, could I ask you to help? Oh, Patty, go ahead.
Well, I just want to thank Vicky. I know that this has been such a long road and with a lot of twists and turns. So thank you, Vicky, for your expertise and patience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I agree. Rima?
Yeah, I noticed there was signature lines for everybody. Are we all going to need to sign some of it? And, I just thought, no. Okay, but
So I know that it's difficult to get everyone to sign all of these documents, and I've spoken with already with the hospital about the signatures. So what we've agreed on is, if possible, if I can get a majority of the trustees to be able to sign these documents, I only need you to sign the deed and the acceptance of deed. That's going, the deed to the hospital and the acceptance of deed that you're getting on for the deed that you're acquiring the property at three lots, lot 1A, 1B, 1C, 1B, 1C, 1D. So I only need you to sign the two. The others, I'm going to ask that you'll vote and authorize Brian as the chair to sign all the other documents. And so, yes, I only need, so I don't know how many of you are available. If you can get them signed by Monday, that would be ideal. And then we can get them sent back to the hospital's council. I don't know. Are all of you on island right now?
I'm getting affirmative head shakes across the room.
Well,
Let me come to.
More importantly, are you all on island on Monday? Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
I'm going to come to Penny real quick.
Just very quickly, do you need original signatures from all of us?
Yes.
And will the documents be in one place, like Tucker's office?
I will definitely have them here, but I also can, I'll work with Ellis and make arrangements to get them where they need to be.
All right, thank you.
But they need to be notarized, so maybe have them with Erica.
So
did you say notarized, Vicky?
So I just need, the deed and the acceptance will need to be notarized, but I only need to have one person's signature notarized. So usually when everyone's together, it's one thing, but we only absolutely have to have one person's signature notarized. So if Brian's signing all of these documents and, he's got others that need to be notarized as well, he could be the person that's going to be in front of a notary to get it done.
So on my availability, I need to do these by noon on Monday. So if everyone can endeavor to get them done by 11, so that I can go and meet with Erica and do them by noon with her. Meg had a question and Tom had a question. Go ahead, Meg.
I'm a notary. If that's helpful, I could come down and do that.
Good to know.
I am as well, if you don't want me to sign.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Same.
And then Tom,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, happy to go down to Tucker's office to sign, and thank you, Vicky. It's an immense amount of work, these documents. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Vicky, so we're talking a lot of technical details about getting signatures, and it looks like I need to get a motion first, whether we want to sign this or not. Could you help us with a motion that I can look to have someone endorse, please?
Sure. So the trust hereby we hereby move to vote to approve and execute the deed and the acceptance of deed for the deed for the deed for 18 Vesper Lane and the acceptance of deeds for lots 1B, 1C, and 1D, 16 Vesper Lane, and to execute any and all other closing documents that relate to this transaction, and to authorize, and we, subject to town council's receipt and review of final closing documents.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion as stated by Attorney Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Is
Sorry.
there a second?
I'll second it.
There's too many elements there.
Wait, Vicky, did you have in there and authorize the chair?
Oh, yeah, and authorize, thank you very much, Tucker, that's very important, and to authorize the chair of the trust to execute documents on behalf of the trust.
I'll amend my motion with Attorney Marsh's amendment to the motion.
I'll second
Thank you,
that.
Tom, and seconded by Penny. So a vote by roll call. Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. I'd like to, if the trust is amenable, that Tucker, you reach out with our sincere gratitude and thanks to Ken Bogran on this, because this process started a long time ago with University of Massachusetts and negotiating this deal. He doesn't, so I would appreciate if we could offer our kudos to him for starting this road.
I agree, yeah.
I want to just interject, Ryan, if I might, that I think it was over 2 years ago that we went through that mold-ridden building.
Yeah.
I think it's closer to 2.5 or 3.
Yeah, it's definitely been a long conversation. So
yeah.
And how the market has changed in that time period. So nice job sticking with the deal. Other business, next meeting.
Just Mr.
Oh, go ahead, Tucker.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention to the trust that there was one neighbor of the parcel that we are acquiring from the hospital who had reached out a while ago, probably about a year ago, when this transaction came on the radar screen. And I just wanted the trust to know that I've, reached back out to them to let them know that we are finally at the point of closing on this transaction, and, are interested to stay in touch and maybe hear a little bit more about what their thoughts might be as we begin developing our plan for developing there.
Great. Thank you for keeping that person up to date and us up to date. Go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if somebody could please send the executive session link if we're having one, because I can't find mine. Sorry.
We are having one, and
we are having one, and we will get that to you momentarily.
Thank you.
Other business, next meeting December 5th at 12:30. Now, to be clear, that's not a full board meeting. That was just the group that committed with this morning, or is that a full board meeting?
Well, the way on the schedule, it's a full board meeting, but I'd like to propose and have the board discuss having one full board meeting in December on the 12th of December.
versus 2 meetings that month.
Yes.
Okay, open for discussion. Anybody have any thoughts or comments? Go ahead, Patty.
What about the holiday party? You guys never let me have a holiday party.
Well, if we
All
have
right, so
just one
meeting in
meeting,
person.
we have time for a holiday party.
True.
I can't come on the 12th, sorry.
Ah!
Unless we're done by 2. I have a 2 o'clock and can't change.
You could
I
drop
like
off
the
at 2.
idea of one meeting in the month of December personally, so if it's the 5th or the 12th, I'm open to either. But I like the idea of reducing to one, especially with the additional work with Judy. Anybody else, the 5th or the 12th as a Rima?
Well, why aren't we doing it on the 19th, which would be our regular meeting day, 3rd Tuesday of the month?
We could
Maybe.
do one meeting on the 19th.
Yeah, I won't be able to make that either.
I can't do the 19th.
No, traveling.
All right, never mind.
Okay, so it sounds like we're
also the
canceling the 19th regardless. Go ahead, Tom.
Mr. Chair, I was just gonna say that I kind of like this Friday thing. It kind of frees up the week a little bit, but I may be in the vast minority here, so.
How about the 15th?
Fridays are tough for me in the winter because I have kids who play sports and it's like a whole weekend thing, but whatever you guys, the majority needs to do.
I can do the 12th if I'm done by 2.
Well, I endeavor to have a fast meeting. I will follow your lead from the last NAREB meeting, quickest meeting ever.
Second.
Well, just we're gonna have some big topics to talk about. So,
Okay.
I mean, so we could perhaps start at noon, on the if we were going to go with the 12th, or if we wanted to think about Tom's idea, if Meg can make it on the say the 15th.
Go ahead, Meg.
I take this with a grain of salt, but I personally think we have a lot to talk about this month. I mean, I think with the year-round deed restriction and then just everything else we have going on. And for me, it's a little easier to have like 2 shorter meetings rather than like 1 4-hour chunk. So that's an option.
So what are you suggesting, Meg? Which meeting dates are you suggesting?
I mean, I can, if it wasn't gonna be like till 3:30 or something on Friday the 15th, I could do that. I could do the 12th. I can do the 5th until 3. Whatever you guys want. We
Are
can
you
do the
suggesting 1 meeting or 2 meetings? In which days?
What do you think, Chantal?
So the 15th is completely out of it for me because I'm at Travel and Tourism Advisory Council meeting in Boston that day. So just not that I matter. There are a lot of you that need to figure out your schedules too.
What,
but...
what do you mean? What not that I matter? So it sounds like the 15th isn't going to be the best day. So do we want to do a meeting on the 5th as is on the agenda right now and a second meeting on the 12th perhaps?
Why don't we do the 5th, and if we need it, the 12th?
Yeah, I think we might just try to break what we are going to tackle on the 5th, to your point about not having a marathon session, into two different meetings.
Okay, so we'll talk about the 12th meeting at the end of the 5th meeting. So we'll keep the 5th on the schedule. Okay, with that, we'll close. Any other business? We'll close that. We'll look to board comments. Any board comments? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion for the purpose to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, real value, or value of real property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of a public body. Is there a motion for executive session?
Moved.
Second.
with a friendly amendment, we'll move to adjourn this session, not to return. So I have a motion and a second from Meg and a second from Shanta. Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Shanta Murphy,
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. And Penny, do you have the link yet? Great. Okay.
Aye.